Peace, 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 peace. Welcome back to the Universal Temple for the sun, planets, moon, and stars. I'll be your Lord of Hosts, Lord Messiah. And today we're going into the declaration for nationhood, nationality, statehood, and race for Allah's 5% nation state. And without further ado, we're going to get straight into it. Let's get it.
In the name of Allah, the Father, Old Man Justice, peace to the nine, firstborn and Allah's 5% nation of gods and earths. Declaration for statehood, nationhood, nationality, and race for Allah's 5% nation state.
Terms and definitions for this declaration. Asiatic, pertaining to Asia, which is the earth as a whole, also known as Pangaea and Dia. Asiatic refers to the melanic, dark-skinned races of peoples of Asia, which is now called Africa. Be or born, be is to exist as a nation within a nation, subject to the laws of that jurisdiction, in the absence of their own. Born is to come out of her and declare political independence as a nation-state. Decolonization, the action or process of a state withdrawing from a former colony, leaving the process in which a country that was previously a colony, controlled by another country, becomes politically independent. Declarations. Sometimes states make declarations as to their understanding of some matter, or as to the interpretation of a particular provision. Unlike reservations, declarations merely clarify the state's position and do not purport to exclude or modify the legal effect of a treaty. Usually, declarations are made at the time of the deposit of the corresponding instrument or at the time of signature. The term declaration is used for various international instruments. However, declarations are not always legally binding. The term is often deliberately chosen to indicate that the parties do not intend to create binding obligations, but merely want to declare certain aspirations. An example is the 1992 Rio Declaration. Establish in each individual case whether the parties intended to create binding obligations. Ascertaining the intention of the parties can often be a difficult task. Some instruments entitled declarations were not originally intended to have binding force, but their provisions may have reflected customary international law or may have gained binding character as customary law at a later stage. Such was the case with the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Declarations that are intended to have binding a declaration can be a treaty in the proper sense. A significant example is the joint declaration between the United Kingdom and China on the question of Hong Kong of 1984. B. An interpretative declaration is an instrument that is annexed to a treaty with the goal of interpreting or explaining the provisions of the latter. C. A declaration can also be an informal agreement with respect to a matter of minor importance. D. A series of unilateral declarations can constitute binding agreements. A typical example are declarations under the optional clause of the Statute of the International Court of Justice that create legal bonds between the declarants, although not directly addressed to each other. Another example is the Unilateral Declaration on the Suez Canal, and the arrangements for its operation issued by Egypt in 1957, which was an engagement of an international character. De facto, in contrast, a de facto population is the total number of people who are found in a given area, regardless of where they normally live. A de facto census counts people in the place where they are found, usually where they spend the night. De jure, a de jure population is the total number of people who are usually residents of a country or area. It is the population that is counted for a given area based on the people who typically live there. A de jure census tallies people according to their regular or legal residence, whereas a de facto census interacts with other nations, citizens of other nations, and businesses of other nations. Nationhood, the fact or status of being a nation. National identity or independence. nation-state, a sovereign state whose citizens or subjects are relatively homogeneous in factors such as language or common descent. A state that is ruled in the name of a community of citizens who identify themselves as a nation. A state is a person in the eyes of international law. Nationality, the quality or character of belonging to a nation. Membership in a nation or nation-state or group of people. Nationality law is the law of a sovereign state and of each of its jurisdictions that defines the legal matter in which a national identity is acquired and how it may be lost. Non-state land shall mean any land, territorial sea, airspace, or merit. Now or nation or end. Now is the present time for the Asiatic nation of original peoples to declare their nationality as a nation-state, or it will be the end of their sovereignty by continuing to compromise a law school in Mecca as a non-for-profit for religious organizations under IRS. Code 501, C3. Original people, a people having their origins in specific land masses, claiming an indigenous inhabitants to the land before any foreign migration, integration, invasion, or occupation, etc. Race is defined as a categorization of humans based on shared physical or social qualities into categories generally viewed as distinct within a given society. Self-determination. The right to self-determination is a legal principle that gives people the right to decide their own destiny in the international order. It's a core principle of international law that's protected in several treaties, including the United Nations Charter and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. The right to self-determination includes the right to choose one's political status, pursue economic, social, and cultural development, preserve one's group identity for sultan, dictator, or totalitarian. States are sovereign as legal entities under international law. Sovereignty. Sovereignty is the authority of a state to govern itself or another state. It is a legal concept that refers to a nation or group of people's right to self-govern and have supreme authority over a specific area. It is a political concept that implies autonomy, meaning that the sovereign is beyond the power of others to interfere. Sovereignty is more of a constitutional law concept than an international law concept. This is because states have constitutions, and no state has authority over all other states in international law. In international law, sovereignty means that a government possesses full control over affairs within a territorial or geographical area or limit. Determining whether a specific entity is sovereign is not an exact science, but often a matter of the way sovereignty is exercised varies by the political nature of the state. For example, in the UK, Parliament has sovereignty, while in many other countries, different bodies exercise the executive, legislative, and judicial powers of sovereignty. Synonyms of sovereignty include autonomy, freedom, independence, liberty, self-determination, and self-governance. Statehood, the condition of being an independent state, especially the status of being one of the states of the U.S. The condition of being a country, or a part of a large country that has its own government. Stateless, a stateless person is someone who is not recognized as a citizen of any country under the laws of that country. This means that they are not legally bound to any government. A stateless person is generally not considered a national by any state under the operation of its laws. Stateless people can face many barriers, including lack of access to education, etc. Some people are born stateless, while others become stateless. Statelessness can be caused by discrimination, war, or changing laws and borders. State authority shall mean any organ of a state at each level of authority, whether the organ exercises legislative, executive, judicial, or any other state functions, and including, without limitation, all central, regional, municipal, local, and judicial organs, or any consistent element of such organs having the state entity shall mean any entity in which directly or indirectly a state has a controlling equity or ownership interest or similar economic interest, or which that state directly or indirectly controls. For purposes of this definition, control shall mean the possession, directly or indirectly, of the power to direct or cause the direction of the management and policies of a person, legal entity, whether through the ownership of a majority or other controlling interest in the voting securities, equity, or other ownership interest in an entity, by law or by agreement between persons conferring such power or voting rights. State land shall mean any land, territorial sea, airspace, or maritime areas over which the state has jurisdiction or exercises sovereign rights in accordance with public international law in the territory. State nationals are the people of each state and populate the national soil jurisdiction. Status, the position of affairs at a particular time, especially in political or commercial context. Territory is a geographic area belonging to or is under the jurisdiction of a governmental authority, such as a trust territory, military base, government headquarters, foreign embassy, private public property, etc. Territory shall mean, with respect to any state, the land territory of such state, its territorial sea and the airspace above each of them, as well as the maritime areas over which such state has jurisdiction or exercises sovereign rights in accordance with public international law. Territorial space refers to all the waters and the land surface, subsurface, and the space above surface that are under the jurisdiction of an administrative entity. UTI Possidetis jurisdiction, a principle of customary international law that serves to preserve the boundaries of colonies emerging as states, requiring them to presumptively inherit their pre-independence boundaries. The preeminence, according to legal title, over effective possession as a basis of sovereignty. The essence of this principle lies in its primary aim to secure respect for territorial boundaries at the moment when independence is achieved. Such territorial boundaries might be no more than the delimitations between different administrative divisions or colonies, all subject to the same sovereign. UA is a legal, lawful abbreviation of the term, meaning to be such territorial boundaries might be no more than the delimitations between different administrative divisions or colonies, all subject to the same sovereign. UA is a legal, lawful abbreviation of the term, meaning to be under agreement with. TM is an abbreviated symbol for a trademark, which is a legal term referring to a word, phrase, symbol, design, or combination of these that identifies a business's goods or services. Copyright is an abbreviated symbol for a copyright, which is a legal term.
Peace, and thank you all for attending this declaration for statehood, nationhood, nationality, and race for Allah's 5% nation state, divinely prepared by your righteous brother Lord Messiah Allah. Political education allows colonial emancipation. Peace.
Peace.